And that concludes our overview of Class 3 predatory species, Professor Krithk announced, his mandibles clicking nervously as he changed the holoscreen to show the assignment requirements. For your first major project, you will each select one species to observe and document their behavioral patterns. Remember, safety protocols are absolutely manda. Question. A hand shot up from the back row. Can we pick any Class 3 predator? The professor's compound eyes swiveled to focus on the only human in his cynobiology class. Ashley Rodriguez, or Ash, as she insisted on being called, sat with her feet propped up on the desk, something that still made him uncomfortable even after 3 months of teaching her. The way humans could bend their joints was simply unnatural. Ah yes, Miss Rodriguez, any officially classified Class 3 predator is acceptable, though I strongly recommend choosing one of the more docile species like the Venetian shadow stalker or... Sweet, I call dibs on the crimson stalker. Ash's declaration was followed by a horrified gasp from her classmates. Even the lithoids, crystalline beings known for their unshakable composure, visibly shuddered. Krithk's exoskeleton made an audible cracking sound. The crimson stalker of Novus Prime. His mandibles clacked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress. Miss Rodriguez, perhaps you don't understand. The crimson stalker is the apex predator of its ecosystem. It stands 4 meters tall, has natural armor plating that can deflect plasma fire, and possesses enough strength to tear through reinforced durasteel. Ash shrugged, pulling out a protein bar and taking a bite. Another human habit that unnerved the class. How could they just consume sustenance so casually? Sounds like a big kitty cat to me. Professor, back home in Florida, I used to help with gator wrestling competitions. This'll be way easier since I don't have to worry about water attacks. Gator wrestling. Krithk's translator struggled with the term. Yeah, you know, alligators. Big reptiles with lots of teeth. Super fun once you get the hang of it. She pulled out her personal tablet, flicking through some images. Here, I've got some videos from last summer's competition. By D.E. Void? No, squeaked Tilara, a Medusian student whose tentacles had gone completely pale. Professor, she's clearly suffering from some sort of psychological disorder. Humans can't possibly be this normal. Ash offered helpfully. Come on, guys, it's not that big a deal. I've been handling predators since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. My family runs a wildlife sanctuary back on Earth. Trust me, after you've bottle-fed a bear cub, everything else is pretty chill. The entire lecture hall erupted in chaos. Several students began recording what they were certain would be their classmates' last words. Others started drafting urgent messages to the ethics committee. One vaporous entity was so distressed it accidentally sublimated. Miss Rodriguez, Krithk tried again, his voice reaching a pitch previously thought impossible for his species. The assignment guidelines clearly state observation must be conducted through secure holographic feeds from a safe distance of at least 5 kilometers. Oh yeah, about that. Ash grinned, pulling up the student handbook on her tablet. I checked the regulations. Turns out humans have this neat little Deathworlder exemption clause. Something about our natural habitat making us uniquely qualify for hazardous environments. She winked. Already filled out all the liability forms this morning. The sound of Krithk's exoskeleton cracking again echoed through the suddenly silent hall. Besides, Ash continued, completely oblivious to her professor's growing distress, I already packed some beef jerky for treats. My old man always says the way to any predator's heart is through its stomach. She paused thoughtfully. Well, that or by scratching behind their ears, but I should probably save that for the second date. In that moment, as he watched his human student cheerfully planning to hand-feed an apex predator, like it was a common house pet, Professor Krithk deeply regretted not taking that teaching position on the alga farm world. This is unprecedented. Dean Voxlith's tentacles writhed in agitation as she paced the length of the emergency boardroom. In my 300 cycles of academic administration, I have never encountered such a fascinating case study," offered Professor Jumera from the Psychology Department, her compound eyes gleaming with poorly concealed excitement. Nightmare. The dean's bioluminescent spots flashed warning colors. "We have a paying student, actively planning to approach the most dangerous predator in the Orion Arm with nothing but dried meat products and what she calls Florida energy." The emergency board meeting had been hastily convened after Professor Krithk's rather dramatic fainting spell in the middle of his lecture. He now sat in the corner, methodically applying emergency exoskeleton sealant while muttering about retirement. "Perhaps we should review the student's background," suggested Administrator Zix, their crystalline form refracting light in concerned patterns. Surely there must be some explanation for this behavior. The holoscreen flickered to life, displaying Ash Rodriguez's admission files. What they saw made several board members wish they had Naval'd eyes. By all that's sacred, Dean Voxlith's tentacles went limp. Is that small human child wrestling with an Earth lion? "Oh, that's from her 8th solar rotation celebration," Professor Krith said weakly. "Keep watching. It gets worse." The footage continued, showing young Ash bottle-feeding various predators, playing tug-of-war with wolves, and casually scratching the belly of something called a bear, which made the Crimson Stalker look positively cuddly in comparison. "Wait, pause there," Chimera pointed excitedly. "Look at the classification numbers. According to Galactic standards, humans are rated as Class 2.8 predators themselves. They're barely below the Crimson Stalker's Class 3 rating." "That's impossible." Zix's crystalline surface rippled with disbelief. "They're so squishy." Another video played, this one showing Ash's father teaching her something called Basic Florida Survival Skills. The board watched in horror as he demonstrated how to redirect a charging alligator, handle venomous snakes, and, most disturbingly, cook something called a BBQ. "Their entire planet is a death world," Krith whispered. "Everything there is trying to kill everything else, and they just live with it. They make pets out of it." "There must be something we can do," the dean pleaded. "Some regulation, some safety protocol." "Actually," interrupted the Academy's legal counsel, a hovering swarm of intelligent bacteria, "we've reviewed all applicable statutes. The Deathworlder exemption is quite clear. Given their natural evolutionary background, humans are legally permitted to approach dangerous fauna at their own risk. Miss Rodriguez has already filed all the necessary paperwork. She even included a personal liability waiver," added Krith miserably. It was notarized, with a smiley face. The holoscreen now showed Ash's most recent social media update, a cheerful selfie with her packed gear, including what she called trail mix, because even apex predators need snacks, and a primitive recording device she'd labeled GoPro. For the sick highlights, bro. Perhaps, Chimera ventured, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her survival instinct. "We should view this as a unique research opportunity. No one has ever gotten this close to a Crimson Stalker and survived to document it. That's because 8 is suicide." The dean's tentacles tied themselves in knots. "Is it, though?" The xenopsychology professor brought up Earth's historical records. Humans have a long history of not just surviving, but befriending predatory species. They turned wolves into something called puppies. They keep big cats as performance partners. They ride horses into battle. They what? "The point is," Chimera continued, "maybe we're not giving Miss Rodriguez enough credit. After all, she did score highest in the practical portion of predator psychology. Only because she kept making sounds at the test subjects," Krith muttered. And they responded. The dean sank into her hover chair, defeat evident in her drooping tentacles. "Very well. But when she gets eaten, I want it noted in the minutes that we tried to stop her." Actually, the legal swarm chimed in. "Her waiver specifically prohibits posthumous criticism of her methods." Krith's exoskeleton cracked again. What in the name of the Void's 7 moons is that? Bloom's tentacles curled in horror as Ash tossed another item into her backpack. Just some trail mix, Ash replied cheerfully, adding a few more handfuls. Want some? It's got M&Ms in it. The Medusian student recoiled, her translucent form rippling with concern. Like most of their classmates, Bloom had opted to conduct her predator observations from the safety of an orbital station. The fact that her human roommate was packing for a Crimson Stalker encounter like it was a weekend camping trip had her seriously questioning the durability of human neural pathways. No, the other thing. The primitive recording device. Oh, my GoPro. Gotta get those sweet action shots. Ash grinned, strapping the camera to her chest harness. My YouTube followers would never forgive me if I didn't document this. Your what followers? Never mind. Ash continued her preparations, humming what she called her pump-up playlist. She'd explained it was traditional human music about surviving tiger's eyes, the thrill of the fight, and rising up to challenges. To Bloom, it sounded like auditory violence. Look, watch this. Ash pulled up a holovid on her tablet. I've been studying some of the greats. The projection showed an ancient human male in khaki shorts approaching various Earth predators, speaking with remarkable enthusiasm about their deadly capabilities. Crikey, isn't she a beauty? Ash mimicked the accent perfectly, making Bloom's bioluminescent spots flash in distress. Steve Irwin was legendary. He really understood that most predators are just big softies once you get to know them. The video description says this human was stabbed through the heart by an aquatic creature, Bloom pointed out weakly. Yeah, but that was just a stingray. They're usually super chill. Ash started doing warm-up stretches, another horrifying human practice that involved bending their bodies in unnatural ways. Besides, I'm not planning on swimming with the Crimson Stalker. Not on the first day, anyway. First day. Well, yeah, you can't rush these things. Gotta build trust, establish boundaries. She pulled out a notebook, an actual physical paper notebook, and showed Bloom her observation schedule. See, day 1 is just general surveillance, and maybe some treat tossing. Day 2 will work on positive reinforcement. By day 5, I'm hoping to try some basic enrichment activities. Bloom's tentacles went completely transparent, the Medusian equivalent of fainting. You're going to try to train it. More like build a mutual understanding. Ash checked her bootlaces, another primitive but apparently crucial survival tool. Did you know Crimson Stalkers have social hierarchies similar to wolf packs? I've got this theory about their hunting patterns. She continued chattering excitedly about predator psychology, while Bloom drafted what she was certain would be her final message to her family. My roommate has gone insane. If you're reading this, she's probably been eaten by now. Please donate my quantum physics textbooks to the Academy Library. Oh, almost forgot the most important thing. Ash rummaged through her desk drawer and pulled out a small red dot emitter. A laser pointer. Bloom had seen these in their physics lab. That's your emergency defense weapon. Nah, it's for entertainment. Every cat I've ever met loves these things. Ash demonstrated by pointing it at the wall, making the dot dance. Even tigers can't resist. Figure it's worth a shot with our big scaly friend. Bloom watched in mounting horror as her roommate did one final equipment check. Beef jerky, trail mix, primitive recording devices, paper notebooks, and a toy designed to antagonize apex predators. Want to watch the live stream? Ash offered, adjusting her Florida Girl versus Space Dinosaur cap. I'll be broadcasting the whole thing. Could be good research material for your own project. I think I need to go sublimate for a while. Bloom managed, her form already beginning to disperse into a stress-induced vapor. Suit yourself. Ash shouldered her pack and headed for the door, then paused. Hey, if I don't make it back, you can have my snack stash. Just don't eat the Takis. They might be a bit spicy for your species. The sound of Bloom's distressed vaporous whooshing echoed down the dormitory hallway, accompanied by Ash's cheerful whistling of Eye of the Tiger. The Academy's observation channel had never seen such high viewership. Every student, professor, and even the maintenance drones were glued to their screens, watching Ash Rodriguez's livestream from the surface of Novus Prime. Day 1, Hour 3 of Operation Big Kitty, Ash whispered into her GoPro, crawling through the violet underbrush, following fresh tracks, probably made within the last hour. Notice the depth of the claw marks, our friends carrying something heavy, likely returning from a hunt. Professor Krithk, watching from the safety of his reinforced panic room, had to admit her tracking skills were impressive. Less impressive was her complete lack of terror when the ground suddenly trembled with heavy footsteps. Oh snap, here we go. Ash's excitement was palpable as she quickly scaled a nearby tree, a motion that seemed unnaturally smooth for a species that had supposedly evolved from ground-dwelling ancestors. First visual contact incoming. The crimson stalker emerged from the dense foliage like a nightmare given physical form. 4 meters of armored killing machine, its scales gleaming blood-red in Novus Prime's dual suns. Curved talons longer than most sentient species' arms carved casual furrows in the ground. Its primary jaw, lined with teeth that could shred durasteel, opened to reveal a secondary set of serrated mandibles. The class observation chat exploded. She's dead. Someone alert medical. Can we be sued for watching this? Human, what guy are you smiling? Because Ash was indeed smiling. Her face lit up like a child discovering a new pet. Would you look at that beautiful girl? She whispered reverently. Check out the scarring on her left flank. Definitely a matriarch. And those mandibles. The holovids don't do them justice. The crimson stalker, currently dragging the carcass of something with too many legs, froze. Its primary hunting advantage was an acute sense of smell, and right now it was processing a completely new scent. She's picked up my trail, Ash narrated excitedly, making notes in her physical notebook while balancing on the branch. Watch her auxiliary nostrils flare, classic investigative behavior. Time to make a proper introduction. No, screamed roughly 3,000 viewers. Ash pulled out a piece of beef jerky. Void save US. Professor Krithk's voice cracked along with his freshly repaired exoskeleton. With practiced ease, Ash broke the jerky into smaller pieces and began tossing them in a deliberate pattern, each piece slightly closer to her position. The crimson stalker's head swiveled to follow the trajectory, multiple eyes blinking in what could only be described as confusion. See that? Ash whispered to her audience. She's using her front-facing eyes instead of her peripheral hunting set. That means she's curious, not aggressive. Just like big cats back home. If they're gonna eat you, they don't look you in the face first. The predator cautiously approached the first piece of jerky, its sensory tendrils extended to analyze this strange new offering. After a moment's hesitation, its secondary mandible snapped out, snatching up the dried meat. Ha! I knew it. Universal constant right there. Everybody loves beef jerky. The class watched in stunned silence as the apex predator of Novus Prime, terror of the Orion Arm, began methodically collecting and consuming strips of dried earth meat, gradually moving closer to the tree where Ash was perched. Okay, girl, let's see how you handle level 2. Ash pulled out the red dot emitter. She wouldn't, gasped Bloom, who had finally reformed from her vaporous state. She would. The small red dot appeared on the ground near the stalker's front claws. The reaction was immediate. Multiple eyes locked onto the mysterious moving light, pupils dilating in predatory focus. The creature's whole body tensed, ready to pounce. Called it. Ash's delighted laughter rang through the live stream as the massive predator lunged at the dot, following it in circles. Big cats are big cats, no matter what planet they're from. The observation chat had gone completely silent, 3,000 minds simultaneously trying to process what they were seeing. One of the galaxy's deadliest creatures playing like a house cat with a laser pointer. Who's a good girl? Ash cooed, expertly moving the dot in engaging patterns. You are. Yes, you are. The Crimson Stalker, dignity thoroughly abandoned, pounced again. Day 3's going fantastic. Ash's whispered commentary continued as she followed the Crimson Stalker, now nicknamed Ruby, through the dense undergrowth. She's accepted my presence in her territory. And watch this. Ash made a distinct clicking sound with her tongue. Ruby's massive head turned, secondary mandibles flexing in what Ash insisted was a greeting. The livestream chat exploded with a mix of terror and disbelief as the human casually tossed a piece of jerky, which the predator caught midair with surprising gentleness. That's when everything went sideways. A high-pitched whine cut through the air. Ruby's spinal plates bristled, and she let out a warning roar that shook leaves from the trees. Ash's expression instantly shifted from cheerful researcher to what her classmates would later describe as terrifyingly focused. "Something's wrong," she muttered, quickly scaling a nearby tree. The camera feed showed what appeared to be energy nets crackling through the canopy about half a kilometer away. Poachers, and they're heading toward... Oh hell no. The feed split as Ash activated her backup camera. The second view showed what she'd spotted. A small hollow where 2 Crimson Stalker cubs were huddled, their scales still soft and pink. Ruby was already moving toward them, but the poachers were closer. "Okay, folks," Ash's voice had taken on an edge that made several alien viewers instinctively back away from their screens. "Lessons canceled. Time for some good old-fashioned Florida justice." Professor Krith's voice cracked through the feed. "Miss Rodriguez, do not engage. The authorities are. Can't hear you. Professor got some technical difficulties." Ash cheerfully lied before muting her comlink. The live stream, however, continued broadcasting. What followed would be reviewed by the Academy's Xenobiology department for years to come, though most viewers needed therapy afterward. Using nothing but local vegetation, her backpack supplies, and what she called basic swamp rat tricks, Ash set up a series of traps that would have made her ancestors proud. The poachers, equipped with top-of-the-line hunting gear, never stood a chance against someone who grew up outsmarting Florida's wildlife. Rule 1 of the swamp. Ash narrated as she used vines to rig a trip line. Always watch where you're stepping. A poacher found this out the hard way, their gravity boots malfunctioning after hitting the carefully concealed trap. Rule 2, she continued, using her trail mix to create a very specific pattern. Everything's got a prey drive. The local equivalent of fire ants, attracted by the sugary snacks, swarmed the poacher's position with enthusiastic vigor. And Rule 3, Ash grinned as she positioned her GoPro for a better angle. Apex predators respect other apex predators. Ruby, having circled around during the chaos, now stood behind the poachers. But instead of attacking, she waited, watching Ash with what could only be described as predatory appreciation. "They're all yours, girl," Ash called out casually. "Just leave enough for the authorities to arrest." What happened next was diplomatically edited out of the official Academy records, though the sound of grown mercenaries screaming about the human devil and her pet monster would echo through the forest for several minutes. When the authorities finally arrived, they found the poachers treed, their equipment scattered and partially digested, while Ash sat cross-legged on the ground making baby voices at the 2 stalker cubs who were attempting to climb into her lap. "Who's gonna grow up to be big, strong apex predators?" "You are." "Yes, you are." Ruby, lying nearby with her head resting on her front claws, watched the scene with all 4 eyes half closed in what Ash would later argue was definitely a smile. "Miss Rodriguez," the lead ranger managed, his mandibles twitching nervously, "did you befriend the Crimson Stalker matriarch and help her defend her cubs?" "Nah," Ash replied, scratching behind Ruby's audio sensor in exactly the right spot, causing the massive predator's leg to thump against the ground. "I just helped a fellow mom protect her babies. Where I come from, we call that Tuesday." The livestream chat had long since devolved into keyboard smashing and existential screaming. Somewhere in his panic room, Professor Krithk's exoskeleton developed a new crack. "Play the footage again," demanded Professor Chimera, her compound eyes fixed on the holoscreen with intense fascination. The Xenopsychology department's review chamber was packed with academics from across the galaxy, all drawn by what they were calling the Rodriguez incident. The recording showed Ash sitting cross-legged in Ruby's territory, surrounded by scientific instruments that she was pointedly ignoring in favor of her paper notebook. The massive Crimson Stalker lounged nearby, watching as her cubs played with what appeared to be a ball made from woven vines. "Note the enrichment toy design." Ash's voice narrated from the footage. Ruby showed immediate understanding of how to teach her cubs to hunt using the ball, just like Earth lions using smaller prey to train their young. But check this out. The assembled academics leaned forward as Ash demonstrated something unprecedented. She mimicked a series of clicks and growls, and Ruby responded with her own vocalizations. Did she just establish two-way communication with a Class 3 predator? A lithoid professor's crystalline surface rippled with disbelief. "Oh, that's not even the cool part." Present-day Ash chimed in from where she sat at the review panel, casually munching on beef jerky. "Watch what happens when I introduce the puzzle box." The footage showed Ash placing a transparent container filled with meat near Ruby. The predator, rather than simply crushing it with her massive claws, carefully manipulated the simple locking mechanism with her secondary mandibles. Traditional xenobiological studies classified Crimson Stalker mandibles as purely hunting appendages, Ash explained, drawing quick sketches in her notebook as she talked. But look at the fine motor control. They're basically extra hands. Ruby uses them for everything from grooming her cubs to testing if fruit is ripe. Fruit. Professor Krithk's newly reinforced exoskeleton creaked dangerously. "They're carnivores. Opportunistic omnivores," Ash corrected. "Just like bears back home. Sure, they prefer meat, but they'll snack on pretty much anything nutritious, which explains their distributed digestive system, something we completely missed because nobody ever got close enough to observe their eating habits properly." The footage continued, showing Ruby using her mandibles to collect certain berries, carefully testing each one before sharing them with her cubs. The predator's notorious killing claws turned out to be remarkably adept at peeling the tough outer shells of local fruit. "But this behavior contradicts centuries of research," protested one academic. "Yeah, well, maybe if we all spent less time hiding in orbital stations and more time actually hanging out with the subjects." Ash shrugged, offering her jerky bag around. No one accepted. The next clip showed something that caused several professors to need smelling salts. Ruby was teaching her cubs how to play with the laser pointer. The really wild thing. Ash grinned. "They understand it's not real prey. Watch their hunting posture. It's completely different from when they're actually stalking something. They're playing, just like Earth cats do. It's enrichment behavior." "This is revolutionary," Chimera breathed, her scientific excitement overriding her survival instinct. "The implications for predator psychology alone." "Oh, and check this out." Ash pulled up another video on her tablet, this one taken just that morning. It showed her approaching Ruby's den with her usual notebook. The cubs, now noticeably larger, bounded out to greet her like oversized kittens. But it was Ruby's behavior that caused the academics to buzz with excitement. The massive predator had arranged her latest kills in a specific pattern, clearly displaying them for Ash's inspection. After Ash made appreciative noises and took notes, Ruby led her to a new hunting ground, actively demonstrating her stalking techniques. "She's teaching you." Krithk's mandibles clicked rapidly in disbelief. "More like we're exchanging notes," Ash said proudly. "I show her new enrichment ideas. She shows me how to properly disembowel a Novus Prime swamp beast. It's a whole cultural exchange thing." "Cultural exchange?" "Well, yeah." Ash flipped her notebook around, showing pages of detailed observations, behavioral notes, and surprisingly good sketches. Turns out the galaxy's deadliest predator is actually a pretty good research partner. Once you get past the whole terrifying death monster thing, and remember that under all those teeth and claws, she's basically just a really big mom who appreciates a good snack. The sound of multiple exoskeletons cracking echoed through the review chamber. The Academy's largest lecture hall had been filled beyond capacity for hours. Students and faculty from every major xenobiology program in the galaxy packed the seats, aisles, and even hung from the ceiling architecture, in the case of some anti-gravity species. Today was Ash Rodriguez's final presentation, and no one wanted to miss it. Before we begin, Dean Voxlith announced, her tentacles still slightly pale, I must remind everyone that the emergency exits are clearly marked, and the panic room's there. Thanks, Dean. Ash bounded onto the stage with characteristic enthusiasm. But I don't think we'll need those today. Ruby promised to be on her best behavior. Ruby, why is he or? The entire auditorium froze. Well, yeah. Can't do a proper presentation without my research partner. Ash pulled out a comically large laser pointer. Ready, girl. The back wall of the stage shimmered as an advanced holographic camouflage field dropped, revealing the Crimson Stalker matriarch lounging on a reinforced platform. Several students fainted. Professor Krithk's newest exoskeleton developed stress fractures. So, Ash clicked through her first slide, seemingly oblivious to the terror around her. Let's talk about why everything we thought we knew about apex predator psychology is completely wrong. What followed was the most extraordinary xenobiology presentation in Academy history. Ash's primitive paper notebooks turned out to contain groundbreaking observations, documented with both scientific precision and characteristic human commentary. Note: Ruby gets grumpy on cloudy days. Recommend extra jerky and chin scratches. Traditional research suggested Crimson Stalkers were solitary hunters, Ash explained, while Ruby demonstrated various hunting poses behind her. But that's only because we were studying them wrong. Check this out. Ruby, show them the pack signal. The massive predator raised her head and emitted a complex series of vocalizations. Moments later, answering calls echoed from the surrounding forest. That's her extended family group responding. Ash beamed proudly. They have a whole social structure we missed because we were too busy running away from them. The mandible clicks. Those aren't threat displays. They're gossip. Ruby here loves telling stories about her cubs. To demonstrate, Ruby made a series of clicking sounds that Ash somehow understood. She says her youngest figured out how to open the puzzle box in record time. Ash translated. Such a proud mama. The audience watched in stunned silence as Ash proceeded to completely revolutionize their understanding of predator intelligence, social behavior, and interspecies communication. She showed footage of Ruby using tools, teaching complex hunting strategies to her cubs, and even engaging in what could only be described as play behavior with other adults of her species. But here's the really cool part. Ash said, pulling up a comparison chart. Look at these behavioral patterns compared to Earth's big cats. The similarities are incredible. It turns out predator psychology has some universal constants across galaxies. This is impossible, muttered one veteran researcher. The statistical probability of convergent evolution across star systems. Oh, it gets better. Ash interrupted cheerfully. Ruby, want to show them your favorite Earth game? The entire auditorium watched in disbelief as the galaxy's most feared predator began enthusiastically chasing the red dot from Ash's laser pointer across the stage. See? Ash grinned. Cats are cats, no matter how many teeth they have or which planet they're from. They all love boxes, they all enjoy knocking things over for no reason, and they all go crazy for laser pointers. As if to prove her point, Ruby pounced on the dot with all the dignity of a house cat, causing the reinforced stage to shake. In conclusion, Ash said, while casually scratching behind Ruby's audio sensor, I propose a complete revision of our approach to predator research. Less hiding in orbital stations, more direct interaction, less assumption of aggression, more appreciation for individual personality, and definitely more beef jerky. She paused thoughtfully. Oh, and maybe we should reconsider calling Earth a death world. I mean, if my classmates think Ruby here is scary, wait until I tell them about honey badgers. The sound of Professor Krith's exoskeleton finally giving up completely was drowned out by thunderous applause, and Ruby's appreciative roar. 1 year later, the new batch of Academy students shuffled nervously into the Predator Psychology lecture hall, freezing at the sight that greeted them. A human woman sat cross-legged on the desk, sharing what appeared to be beef jerky with a fully grown crimson stalker. "Welcome to Advanced Xenopredator Studies," Professor Rodriguez announced cheerfully. "I'm Ash, this is Ruby, and that little troublemaker trying to steal my backpack is her youngest, whom we've nicknamed Spot." A juvenile stalker, already larger than most sentient species, sheepishly backed away from Ash's trail mix supply. "Is this safe?" squeaked a newly enrolled Medusian student. "Safer than my cousin's wedding in Miami," Ash replied with a wink. "Now who's ready to revolutionize some scientific paradigms?" The past year had transformed the Academy's approach to predator studies. The observation deck gathered dust while a new hands-on research facility flourished. Ruby's territory had become the galaxy's first Crimson Stalker Sanctuary, where reformed poachers now worked alongside xenobiologists to study and protect the species. "Today's lesson is about challenging assumptions," Ash continued, while Ruby demonstrated proper hunting techniques to her latest litter. "For instance, who can tell me why we called these beautiful creatures stalkers in the first place?" A brave lithoid student raised a crystalline appendage. "Because they're apex predators who stalk their prey." "Nope." Ash tossed a treat to Ruby, who caught it with characteristic gentleness. "We called them that because we never stuck around long enough to see what they were actually doing. Ruby, want to show them your favorite hottie?" The massive predator rose and approached a variety of local fruits and vegetation that had been arranged on a table. With surprising delicacy, she used her deadly claws and mandibles to sort them by ripeness, carefully selecting the best ones to share with her cubs. "They're gardeners." Ash beamed proudly. "The stalking behavior we observed, often just them tending to their favorite fruit trees. Sure, they hunt. They're apex predators after all. But they also cultivate specific plants for medicinal and nutritional purposes." The students watched in amazement as Ruby demonstrated her botanical knowledge, then proceeded to use complex tool manipulation to access the different fruits. "Which brings us to today's main lesson," Ash said, pulling out her famous notebook, now archived in the Academy's museum but still her preferred recording method. "Sometimes the scariest thing in the universe is our own assumptions. Ruby's species isn't just surviving on this planet. They're actively maintaining its ecological balance. We just never bothered to look past our fear to see it." A tentative hand raised. "Professor Rodriguez, is it true you're starting an exchange program with Earth Predator Sanctuaries?" "Sure am." Ash grinned while Spot attempted to climb into her lap, despite being the size of a small shuttle. "Next semester, we're hosting some tiger conservation experts. Ruby's been practicing her Earth Cat social signals. Show them, girl." The Crimson Stalker produced a sound remarkably similar to a purr, causing several students to reflexively check their universal translators. But they're from different planets," protested one student. "Different evolutionary paths." "Yeah, and I'm technically a prey species," Ash shrugged, sharing her trail mix with Ruby's cubs. "Hasn't stopped us from figuring out we're not so different after all. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to sit down and share some beef jerky." As if to prove her point, the lecture hall doors opened to reveal Professor Krith, now sporting a reinforced exoskeleton with built-in stress absorbers, carefully carrying a laser pointer. "Ready for today's enrichment session?" he asked, his mandibles clicking with what could only be described as anticipation. Ruby's entire family perked up, eyes focusing on the small device with familiar enthusiasm. "See." Ash laughed as the galaxy's deadliest predators prepared to chase a red dot around the lecture hall. We're all just living beings trying to figure each other out. Some of us just have more teeth than others. She paused to scratch Ruby's chin. Though I still say nothing out here is as scary as a determined Florida mom with a flip-flop. Now that's an apex predator. The sound of joyful predator chirps, student laughter, and the occasional cracking of Krith's reinforced exoskeleton echoed through the academy halls. A new normal in a galaxy learning to look past its fears.